These are the Jack the Ripper murders explained by AI. The Jack the Ripper murders are perhaps the most notorious series of killings in British history. They occurred in the Whitechapel area of London in 1888 and were marked by extreme violence and brutality. Despite an extensive police investigation, the killer was never identified or caught, and the case remains unsolved to this day. In this essay, we will explore the background of the murders, the victims, the suspects, and the police investigation in detail. The Whitechapel area of London in the late 19th century was a poor and densely populated district. It was home to many immigrants and was known for its high crime rates, particularly in relation to prostitution. Women in the area often had to turn to prostitution to make ends meet, and it was not uncommon for them to fall victim to violence or abuse. In 1888, a series of murders occurred in Whitechapel that shocked London and the world. The killer, who came to be known as Jack the Ripper, targeted women who were prostitutes and killed them in a particularly brutal manner. The murders were marked by a high degree of precision and skill, leading some to believe that the killer may have had a medical background. The exact number of victims is not known, but it is generally agreed that there were at least 5 murders that can be attributed to Jack the Ripper. All of the victims were women, who were prostitutes and were killed in a similar manner. The first victim was Mary Ann Nichols, who was found dead in Bucks Row on August 31, 1888. The second victim was Annie Chapman, who was killed on September 8, 1888, in the backyard of a house on Hanbury Street. The third and fourth victims were Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, who were killed in the early hours of September 30, 1888. The fifth and final victim was Mary Jane Kelly, who was killed on November 9, 1888, in her own home. The murders were characterized by extreme violence and brutality. The victims were typically attacked from behind and had their throats slit. The killer then proceeded to mutilate their bodies in various ways, often removing organs or parts of the body. There were several suspects in the Jack the Ripper case, but none were ever definitively identified as the killer. One of the earliest suspects was a man named Montague John Druin, a barrister who had committed suicide shortly after the last murder. Some have speculated that he may have been driven to suicide by guilt over the killings, but there is little evidence to support this theory. Another suspect was Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant who was identified as a suspect by a witness. Kosminski had a history of mental illness and was known to have violent tendencies. However, there is little evidence to connect him definitively to the murders. Other suspects have included Francis Tumblety, an American doctor who was known to have a fascination with anatomy and who had a criminal record, Michael Ostrog, a Russian conman who had a history of violence, and James Maybrick, a Liverpool businessman who was alleged to have kept a diary in which he confessed to the killings. The police investigation into the Jack the Ripper murders was extensive but ultimately unsuccessful. The investigation was led by several detectives, including Frederick Haberline and Walter Dew. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses, collected extensive forensic evidence, and conducted numerous raids in the Whitechapel area. Despite these efforts, the killer was never identified or caught. The investigation was hindered by a lack of resources, challenging conditions of the Whitechapel area, and the fact that forensic science was still in its infancy at the time. The police also faced a great deal of public pressure to solve the case, and this may have led them to pursue certain suspects more aggressively than others. In the aftermath of the murders, there were many criticisms of the police investigation. Some accused the police of mishandling evidence or not following up on leads, while others suggested that corruption or incompetence may have played a role in the failure to catch the killer. Despite the fact that the Jack the Ripper murders occurred over 130 years ago, the case remains a subject of fascination and speculation to this day. The identity of the killer, the motive for the killings, and even the number of victims continue to be debated and analyzed by historians, criminologists, and amateur sleuths alike. The Jack the Ripper case has also had a significant impact on popular culture. The killings have been the subject of countless books, films, and television shows, and have inspired a subgenre of crime fiction known as the Ripperology. The case has also had an impact on the field of forensic science, as it highlighted the need for more advanced methods of evidence collection and analysis. Do you have an interest in true crime, mysteries, and historical events? The Jack the Ripper case is one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in history, and Casebook.org offers a comprehensive and engaging resource for anyone interested in exploring the evidence and theories surrounding the case. On the website, you can dive into the details of the murders, read about the various suspects and theories that have been proposed, and engage with a community of individuals who are equally intrigued by the case. Whether you are a true crime buff or simply curious about this captivating piece of history, Casebook.org offers an opportunity to learn and discover more. The site is regularly updated with new information and discussions, making it an ongoing and evolving resource for those interested in the Jack the Ripper case.